Welcome to the Underscore Transformation Podcast. My name's Jason West.
And my name is Joe Wales.
And together we're the founders of Underscore. In Season 2 of this podcast series, we're focusing on implementation and the challenges that surround making changes to policies, processes, systems, and team structures. If you'd like to know more about scoping a transformation program, please take a listen to Season 1. In today's episode, we're focusing on some of the more technical elements of transformation, and that's integrations and reporting. This can be a challenging topic for functional leaders that are new to systems implementation. So we'll be taking a first principles approach to our discussion today. So Joe, you're never one to shy away from a conversation about integrations. So what do our listeners need to know? What's an integration and what on earth has it got to do with reporting?
Gosh, you're making me sound like a little bit of a geek here. I am quite passionate about this because actually one of the reasons this is so important is the impact it has on the overall program, on the overall success of the program.
Yeah, and the overall success of the function once the program's rolled off and kind of gone into the distance.
Absolutely. It's so critical. And many organizations probably don't pay enough attention to integrations and reporting early on. But to answer your question, what's the difference between an integration and reporting? I mean, I am not a technical geek, just putting it out there. But
we'll let our listeners decide.
Yes, having done a few of these, I sort of can take a stab at it. Both are about transmitting data. Yeah. An integration is point to point. Is something that is transmitting data that updates a separate system.
Yeah. So it's computers talking to computers.
Yes. Yeah. With hopefully a bit of a human in between, creating some sort of logic in terms of what data needs to go across from one system to another. Yeah. And reporting is data that's presented to a human. It's something that's probably used in an organization. And sometimes those reports can be used as well to update other systems. But the point is that you're delivering a piece of data to someone for that someone to do something with.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, and in both cases actually, whether it's integration or a report, you need to be very, very clear in terms of what data is required, what's it going to be used, particularly in the context of GDPR and data protection and so on and so forth.
Yes.
This has become much more important than perhaps it had been in years gone by.
Yeah. So how are you using it? Why are you using it?
Who's seeing it? Who has access to it? Etc. Etc. Have real clear rationale as to why that destination system needs whatever data it needs from the system of origin, I guess.
Yeah.
And then there's all the technical stuff about formatting and making sure that you're very, very clear in terms of this, in your specification about the formatting needed in a destination system, and how frequently do you need to send it? These are some of the very, very basic questions you need to ask at the very outset. And then, of course, as you start going into more and more detail later on in your design, it might become a little bit more complicated.
Yes, yeah. So we'll keep it high level for now.
Yes.
So we've defined some terms. So integration's a way of transmitting data from computer to computer, and reporting a means of transmitting data to people.
Yeah.
So with those terms defined, let's talk about integrations first, and then we'll get on to reporting. So for somebody that's leading a transformation program or perhaps sponsoring a transformation program, what are the kind of key things they need to know about integrations at the get-go?
If we define from the get-go is way before you sign a contract. You really need to have understood when you're scoping out the transformation and you're trying to push in a system, what's this system going to talk to? Who is it going to talk to? You've got to have clarity around that.
So you should have a set of assumptions that you've made during the scoping phase about what this new system is going to do and which other systems it's going to talk to.
Yeah, the functionality you're going to bring in, what legacy systems are you going to replace, what what systems, the system that it's going to replace. What does that system talk to right now? Are you creating a new set of data structures as a result of your new system coming in that actually needs to talk to a system that he hasn't spoken to, the legacy system didn't speak to before? There's all that sort of stuff that you really, really need to have nailed down.
Yes.
Involving the IT function in this space is really, really important. Systems architects, data architects. Making sure that you got your master data set up, and we'll probably touch on master data a little bit later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's a really, really important decision that you need to make, which is, where's your data going to be mastered, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's a whole load of technical stuff as well around, what are you going to have middleware, hardware? How's the data going to get transformed from one system to another? I mean, it's really, really complex stuff. And the point here is you cannot allow this to be an afterthought in your program.
Yeah, you'll be carrying a massive amount of risk. If you start implementation and you're still figuring out, your technical team still figuring out, okay, is this system going to talk to that one? Is there going to be a bit of middleware in between? The costs will just escalate rapidly if that isn't fully scoped out before you start implementation.
Yeah, you can have, absolutely. I mean, things will iterate, right, through your implementation. But what it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a surprise that you need to integrate to another system during your project.
Yes.
It shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Yeah. If there's data sets that, because your new system of record that you're sending data from to doesn't have a particular data set that other system requires, okay, you need to find a solution for it, right? Yeah. But what it shouldn't be, oh, wow, we need to integrate into that system over there. I hadn't thought about that. Let's now start scoping out the design of it whilst you're making a whole bunch of decisions around how's your TOM going to work, how's your processes going to work, how's your data going to be handled. Because all of those decisions you might have already made during an earlier phase of your implementation. Yes, yeah. And an integration requirement comes along that might impact on some of those design decisions you've made, and you really don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, and that, in fact, that often happens, doesn't it? You've done your best during scoping to engage across as many people as you can to gather their requirements and understand what their wants and needs are. But when you actually kick off one of these programs, then it's not unusual for people to come out of the woodwork and go, oh, that new ERP you're putting in, that new HCM system, it would be great if you could store this information. I just need to pass it across to you. Yeah. And there's a really good reason for doing it. And you look at it and you go, actually, that would add a massive amount of value. Yeah. You just got to be careful. Do you want to put that into your phase one go live and add a new integration? Sometimes you may. And it might be a really good reason to do it. But wherever possible, try not to do that. Just do it, but not in your first phase. Get it up and running after you've gone live and everything's embedded in. It's just adding additional integrations during implementation is a risky business.
Yeah. I mean, scope it out during the scoping phase. And you've already mentioned in our intro about listening to season one. And when we talk about this already in season one, which is getting your assumptions right. Yeah. Do the groundwork before you get the system integrator in a room, because guess what? A new integration is additional cost. Yes. That hadn't been scoped out before. They hadn't been included in the statement of work. They hadn't been included in the contract of deliverables from the system integrator. So it's going to add additional cost. Yeah. It's something that you hadn't planned for in terms of your resources, in terms of technical resources to do the build, to do the testing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Surprises like that are reasons why projects get derailed. So it is really, really important that there are no surprises.
Yes, because this is one of the riskiest areas anyway. It's one of the highest areas.
Scope creep in integrations is definitely up there with one of the main reasons for changing scope of projects. Actually, sometimes that taking integrations out of scope as well, because it becomes a little bit too difficult.
Yes, yeah.
And I've seen projects where integrations have been taken out of scope, but they were so fundamental to a business case being achieved, right? So it's like, well, why are you taking that integration out of scope? Because you're going to get so much value out of it. Okay, it might be complicated to deliver, but you shouldn't really be. When you're putting integrations into scope and taking them out of scope needs to be really, really carefully thought through.
Yeah, and I think you said you tend to get that where you've got a very technical project manager that's just looking at their world of, there's just lots of technical risk about getting this live without it being fully tested and all those, sort of very sensible things. But because they're technical, they don't understand the operational impact of taking this particular integration out of scope.
And now you've got dual keying, and you've got all of that to deal with. How are you going to keep two systems' data synchronized? And integrations play a vital role in that. So putting integrations into scope are as bad as taking integrations sometimes out of scope.
Absolutely. I think this is where the governance structure of your program comes in. And surprisingly enough, we've talked about governance before. We'll talk about it again. But you need these multiple lenses as you look at any one issue. So it's fine for a technical project manager to make an impassioned argument for pulling an integration out of scope, but you need a program manager sat above that. You need a transformation leader sat above that. You need the sponsor being really clear about, well, actually, this is the benefit that we need to deliver to the business, and to look at it through those different lenses. So whilst it might be a good technical argument, it's actually the wrong thing to do for the business. So the other area where technical project managers can present perhaps a slightly over-optimistic approach to their state of readiness of their various integrations. And that can be a bit of a challenge for a transformation lead that's new to the role, or a sponsor that hasn't perhaps sponsored a major system integration or system implementation before. So what are those kind of key questions that you can ask to make sure that your integrations are really ready?
Has it been designed? Has it been built? Has it been fully tested? Give me evidence of the tests that we've executed. What scenarios, what test scenarios have we pushed through the integrations? If you're starting to hear quite close to a go live, and it might be 2 or 3 months away, that's quite close to a go live, right? It's not close to a go live isn't next week. Close to a go live is 2 to 3 months. And if you start to hear things like, well, the integration's going to be built next week or the week after, you start to question whether you've got enough time to put enough data through to do all of the testing that you need to do, because a lot of these integrations rely on data being processed in a certain way, right? So if you've got a purchase order or a account or an invoice, you need those invoices to be processed in a certain way to give you the data that you need to end up in a different financial accounting system, for instance. I don't know. So you need to give yourself enough time to put an awful lot of processes through. And if you're starting to hear that, the integration's not, is nearly ready, 2 or 3 months away, I would start to become a little bit nervous.
So what's a sensible sort of time frame then to build, test, or design, build, and test an integration?
Obviously, it's how long's a piece of string. It depends on the complexity, but you're going to have different iterations of it. You're not going to get this thing right first time. So you're going to come up with issues, either data issues, the formatting, and the way the system is processing, and some transactional data. That's not easily transportable or to a different system. Or not easily transportable in a way that destination system expects it. So you've got to account for all of these sort of nuances that you're going to get. And then the other thing is making sure that you've got things like your development environments ready to test these integrations. Very often, it becomes a bit of a surprise that we need to test integrations. And there are no development systems of that destination system to test it in. So it does present an awful lot of problems and issues, and many projects I've seen have pushed our integrations to the right, post go live, and gives you no end of issues.
Yeah.
In trying to sort of, as I said before, trying to synchronize, keeps two systems synchronized.
So you mentioned test environments of kind of downstream systems. So this is a copy of that operational system in a test environment that you can then link your integration from your development environment of your new system into that test system. So the other thing that you touched on was design. And I think it's really important just to kind of focus on this a little bit here. So what are the kind of the key things that a sponsor or a transformation lead wants to reassure themselves around the design? What are those questions they should be asking to make sure that the design is in a good shape?
First of all, make sure that you've got a technical architect working on your project that understands the design of these integrations, and ask the technical architect, okay, how ready are we? Where are we with the design?
Yes.
Where are we with the data? How is data being mastered? Again, another point of another critical point for integrations is data quality.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the quality of our data in our legacy system that we're moving across into our new system that's now going to be used to push data out to other destination systems, right? So really, really question that.
Yeah.
Data quality readiness. Where are you in the plan? How far away are you from go live?
Yeah.
And if it's 2 or 3 months, and if you're still in design mode and you're not yet testing, if you're still trying to figure out what the specification should be worried.
Yes.
Because at this point, 2 or 3 months out, which is not a long time away, you should really start. The sponsor should start to feel comfortable that we're in test mode of integrations.
Now, you touched on something there around master data management. It's something that gets spoken about a lot, and it's not actually all that well understood. So it'd be good to get a bit of a 30-second overview of master data management.
I mean, I'm starting to sound like a technical geek, but I am not. I promise you. I've just done enough of these projects to sort of get a vague idea of what this is. But for me, it's quite simple. I mean, there's an awful lot of master data management sort of specialists out there with lots and lots of big books.
Please write in as Joe gets this.
If I get this wrong, please don't slam me for it. But for me, simplistically, and I am going to get slammed for this, simplistically, it's where's data mastered?
Yeah.
And make sure that you've got the definition of that data set well articulated.
Yeah.
Make sure that you've got things categorized. Make sure that you've got your data security tied into it as well. And that's for my simple layman's terms. That's what master data management means to me.
And when we say mastered, we mean where is it created?
Where it's created. Yeah. Where it's created. Where do I find that one version of the truth that I need to get at?
Yeah.
If you've got headcount being mastered in 2 separate systems, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have to do check both of those systems to get to the one version of the truth.
Yes, and if you've got part numbers, you're really clear on which system is creating those part numbers and the format of them, and is it the same across all different systems?
Absolutely,
that sort of good fun stuff.
Oh, I cannot wait to get slammed for this.
Please don't start talking about master data management of part numbers. We're going to lose everybody.
No, I'm not.
Okay, so your design, you're pretty confident. Your enterprise architect's been involved in the overall design. Where you touched on that, if it's 2 to 3 months out and the integrations still haven't been built, if you've got a program of say 12 months, you're implementing a new system, it's going to take you 12 months. I can see 2 to 3 months towards the end of that could be really worrying. When would you expect these integrations to start being built in that kind of 12 month? And when should a sponsor start getting concerned if there's still stuff not progressing?
Yeah, I mean, you can't start doing integrations from day one because the data set doesn't exist in the system that you're trying to build yet.
Yeah.
So you probably need to have your integrations well spec'd out. during the very early stages, as soon as a system integrator standing in front of you, asking you for specifications, you need to be able to provide those. Yeah. You then go through the initial phases, and especially with cloud technology now, it's iterative. So you have your first prototype, and where you're starting to push some of your data into that prototype, and you start to make some design decisions around process. After that, at that point, you should start to build your integrations. Once you've got some data set in there, you should start to build your integrations quite early on. So maybe 2 or 3 months in, the first iteration of your integrations would be built. So then it gives you a good sort of runway of 4 or 5 months to test some of this complicated stuff. So make sure that you've got your test systems like we talked about before. Make sure that you've got, you can create the integration, but then how do I send it? Where do I send it to that destination system?
Who owns that destination system? Have you identified the owners of all these systems that you're integrating with internally?
Have you spoken to the supplier?
Yes,
It's all of these things. There's an element of you need to get yourself into a state of readiness before you start getting head down into designing integration. In designing integrations, you need to have done quite a lot of groundwork prior to that. So during that initial phase where you've got your first iteration, your first prototype being built, use that time, integration leads or integrated systems architects, etc., to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. Yeah. All the destination systems that you need to integrate with are expecting that data set to be sent across, into what systems, etc. Use that time to prepare, and then once you've done your first set of integrations, then you're really ready to sort of kick some testing off.
Yeah. So if before you start talking to them about this level of detail, hopefully they're aware that this program is happening. You've involved them in any kickoff meetings where when you look at those target systems that you're looking to link up with, you've identified not just the person in IT that owns that system, but also the business owner, the person in procurement or finance or sales or whoever you're linking in with. You've got that business owner engaged in the program, and you've really thought about how you're going to involve them in your governance structure, because they're going to have to sign some stuff off, you'd hope, before you push an integration live.
It's part of your go, no-go, really, isn't it? It's critical.
Absolutely. You've got to have thought that through.
Yeah.
So as a sponsor, just making sure that those sorts of things have been thought about and documented, and you're confident that you're getting the right sort of answers back. So on that timeline piece, if you're not getting satisfactory answers to these sort of questions, and you've already started designing the detail of new systems and new processes, you should be concerned, really.
Yeah. Integrations rely on data being processed. If you have not done that sort of integration design in conjunction with the processes that you're designing, you're going to carry some risk.
Yeah, so including your system architect and your integrations lead in those process design workshops, absolutely key.
Because this is you're designing end-to-end process, aren't you? It's not just designing the functionality within whatever system you're building, or you're designing end-to-end process. So how data is, and sometimes data can travel between 2 or 3 systems.
Yeah. I can actually think of a project that we went in to have a look at and help turn around, and that the IT function and the system architects had been deliberately kept out of process design workshops, so those system design workshops. It was not a good outcome.
No.
You've got, this is an integrated program team that you need to deliver this. This isn't one function going off and doing its own thing. If you don't have your IT function fully integrated into your program team, you will have problems.
Many projects might actually take a simplistic view that, I'll just replace whatever integration we have today with a new set of new integration from the new system.
Yeah.
Data is going to be processed differently. The data will be different. We talked about master data management just a second ago. That's going to be different. It's going to be catalogued differently. The security model around the new system will be different. Yeah. So you can't take a simplistic view of, okay, today I provide this data set on a Monday that has these sets of like 5 or 6 data values, and I'll just push that out again from my new system of record that's coming in. Don't take a simplistic view of that, because actually there's bigger opportunity potentially to optimize your end-to-end process further.
Yeah.
If you take a more holistic view of your design.
Yes, yeah. So we're not saying that won't work. It will work. If you say we're going to replicate that integration, you're going to get the data in exactly the same format, exactly the same frequency. It's a missed opportunity, isn't it?
It is.
You could fundamentally redesign that end-to-end process, so life is better in the
exactly, in the long
downstream.
Run. And if your business case is, if there are some conditions on your business case that you're going to optimize, you're going to simplify your processes, and integrations play a key role in that.
Yeah.
So, and if the answer is, after you've done the review, after the systems architects have been involved, not kept in the dark, not kept in the dark, if the systems architects, data architects have been involved, and everyone thinks that actually the most sensible thing to do is to just do a lift and shift, absolutely do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But consider making some improvements.
It has to be an informed decision.
Yes, yeah. You're listening to the Transformation podcast. To download our transformation checklists, please visit _group.com/insights. So we've got our integrations, well designed. They're fully spec'd out. The technical team are well on their way to getting them built. We can just park that for a minute.
Yeah.
Let's focus on reporting. So what is the link between integrations and reporting? First up.
Well, integrations are complex beasts. You're pushing data from one system to another. Reports are sometimes probably a little bit cheaper to produce, and probably a lot more flexible as well.
Yeah.
Many projects actually confuse the two. Mm-hmm. They receive a monthly costing report that they think is an integration. No, that's just a report. You might be updating a system, maybe through keying or dual keying or whatever with that data set, but that's just a report. The other thing to consider around reporting, actually, if we step away from integrations now, if we think about reporting, is what are those operational reports you need to effectively run that function or that process? Making sure that you're being compliant, that the policy that you've designed is being adhered to, the processes that you're executing through the technology. Reporting is really, really important, and the amount of projects that I go into or to review, and they're not considering reporting at the very outset.
Yes.
Reporting is a real afterthought.
Yeah.
Because of the idea that these new cloud systems come with out-of-the-box reports with thousands of reports. Surely there's one in there that we can use.
Yeah.
There may well be, but you need to document it. You need to understand create your reporting strategy right up front.
Yes, yeah.
Because actually, one of the other things it will do, it might fundamentally change the way you design your processes or the way you structure the data sets within the system.
Yes, yeah. If you haven't started from that, well, what are the decisions that we need to make?
Yeah.
Who's going to be making those decisions? What information are they going to need to make a well-informed decision? And then what format do they need? How frequently do they need it? It's very similar, as we said at the start, to the integrations piece. It's that human element of it.
Because it drives security, right? Again, it's like if you expect your exec to make a set of decisions on some financial data, procurement data, HR data, they need to be able to see it in a way in which they expect to see it to make those solid key business decisions, because that's been the premise of your business case.
Yes, yeah.
Right? The business case has been probably built on the fact that we are now going to be we're going to have data-driven decision-making.
Yes, yeah.
And if you don't think about that right up front, you end up with a system that's just purely a transactional system that's processing data that may, at the end, give you out some dashboards, but it's probably not what you envisaged when you're creating the case for change at the very outset.
Yes, yeah, and we've seen it on more than one occasion where you've made an assumption going in that people are going to be making these great data-driven decisions, and because that design work around the reporting hasn't been done, a fundamental data set just wasn't put into the new system.
Or a security model hadn't been thought through to allow
so they couldn't see it.
The individuals to see the data that they need to see.
Yes,
the processes haven't been built to actually transact the data in a way that enables those reports to be created and presented in the way they need to present it. There's an awful lot of thinking that needs to go into reporting at the very beginning of the project.
Yeah. So you've got those kind of strategic reports, those business reports, of actually understanding, well, what is the probably very large number of reports that we produce today from our current systems, and doing a bit of an audit on that and understanding, well, we've probably got 15 different versions of the same thing, and they're all slightly different colours and slightly different columns in slightly different order, because that's just what happens over time as things just kind of get built.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of understand what the requirements are today. You've touched on operational reports around how we're actually delivering our processes, but what are the other things that you need to consider when you're looking at reporting?
Data quality. Yeah, you're going to have an enhanced data set in a new system that you're putting in that you didn't have in your legacy system before.
Yeah,
whatever data quality reporting you had before that was appropriate to the system that you had before, it's not going to be appropriate to the system that you're now going to have, because it's a fundamentally different new sets of data.
Well, especially if, and I'd assume this would be the case in most business cases, you've assumed you're going from a heavily centralized data entry to a broader data entry through self-service in some way.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you haven't really thought through the restrictions you're putting on the way people are entering data into your system, there's a good chance you're going to go from something that actually potentially had quite a high quality of data because it was a well-trained, centralized team that input data and they knew all the nuances of this kind of funky old system that you had, through to today. You've just gone live with a brand new system that works completely differently.
Yeah.
But you've pushed a lot of that data entry from a centralized team out into the wider function or out into the business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you can expect your data quality to actually decrease initially. And there's a good chance it will.
There's a very good chance it will, yeah.
No matter how much training you do, no matter how much structure you put around it, it's not possible to know everything.
Yeah.
So you might find that if you need to start over time adding in kind of mandatory fields, input masks on data.
I mean, think of that right up front in your design. If you've not thought through that up front and you end up with, okay, we've now gone live and our data's in the right state. Yeah. It's not a good place to be. So think through that as you're processing, as you said, as you're processing that data set. What are the critical data points? We need to make sure that they're right, but don't overcomplicate it either. There's a balance here. I've seen some cases people getting a little bit sort of too fascinated with things that are sometimes quite simple. So that's just have a sensible approach to making sure that the user experience is right, and not complex, not burdensome with lots of rules, and then the more rules you build into a system, the more complex it is to maintain it. Right, so it has to be a balanced decision.
So, but I think the important thing is, as you say, design it as much as you can up front, but you really cannot design for everything. No. You need to have those data quality reports, operational reports, audit reports, to compliance reports, to make sure that once you are live, you can see how the system's actually being used out in the wild. You need to review them regularly and update the design of the system in real time to get you to the position where you want to be, which in most cases is a devolved reporting capability out with the people that are making the decisions. So they make the best possible informed decisions that they can.
Absolutely.
And for them to do that, they need good quality data. They need data in the right format when they're making the decision that they trust.
Yeah.
And that takes time.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and we talked a little bit about integrations, actually. You don't want to compromise the quality of the data that ends up in a different destination system.
Yeah.
Right. So you've gone from a world, like you said before, where everything's centralized, everything's controlled, the data entry is executed in a controlled way by a centralized team. Now it's in the wild, wild west with everybody having access to their own sort of self-service and so on. Not only are you compromising the data quality within the system in which these individuals are transacting their processes, but actually you're potentially compromising the downstream yes. systems that you've integrated with, that you spend forever creating these complex integrations to push data from one system to another.
Yeah, just fill them up with loads of garbage in a really effective and efficient way.
And now all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of enterprise-wide systems. They're totally knackered.
Yeah.
So data quality, data structure, reporting, audit, governance, all of that. Think through all of these points right up front.
Yeah. And I think the point to leave people on is really that from a reporting standpoint, you're going to build as much as you possibly can on day one when you go live, and that's going to be as well designed as it possibly can be. But the reality is that your brand new shiny system hasn't got much data in it.
Yeah, you have to wait a little bit,
Yeah, so that business case that you put together that said we're going to make these wonderful data-driven decisions, that we're going to get better outcomes because of it, and all the financials that are going to flow from that.
It'll take time.
It will take time.
It will. And, we don't like seeing business cases that expect immediate ROI on day one. As soon as you go live, we start getting benefit from it. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You need a good amount of time to have data being passed through.
Yeah. So if you, and that's probably one of the questions that you need to ask as a sponsor and a transformation lead is what is our strategy and our plan post go live? As we've said on many occasions, day one is the beginning. Go live is the beginning of the change. It's not the end of it. It's not the delivery of really anything. That's just when the change starts. Being really clear on what is that plan, how are we going to roll out new reporting, new functionality, how do we get to those kind of predictive analytics that everybody's very excited about, how do we get to machine learning? Machine learning is complete waste of time if it's based on a messy data set. That you're going to get some very, very bad outcomes if that's the case. And there's been
imagine CEOs and COOs and CFOs etc. making strategic decisions on
poor quality data.
Poor quality data is not a good place to be in, really.
Yeah,
and you don't want people to sort of CEOs and or CEOs. You don't want the exec to be questioning whether they're making solid business decisions on the data that's being presented in front of them.
Yeah.
So you need to have your robust processes and practices built in as you're building your project, as you're implementing. Put those practices straight into the program from the outset to give everybody confidence that actually everything within the system, the integrations are working, the data is good quality. People can see what they're allowed to see. Actually, one of the things we didn't talk about too much is around data security. Pay a lot more attention to that than perhaps you had done before. And one of the key things to consider here is, I've built an amazing security model in the system that I'm implementing today.
Yes.
I'm now pushing data to a different system. Ask the question, who can see the data that I'm sending across to that system?
Yes.
What security model does that system have?
Yeah.
Because if you've been really sort of careful and thought through, I don't want people to see X, Y, and Z, and all of a sudden it goes through on an integration and those individuals can see X, Y, and Z in that destination system. It's not a good place to be. So get your system architect, whoever's doing that design, to describe to you as a sponsor, who can see what data across all of our systems.
Yeah.
And nowadays with data privacy legislation changing all the time, is more and more relevant.
Yeah. So we've skimmed over a very, very big topic here, and I'm sure we'll do a dedicated podcast later on one on integrations and another on reporting, because they're both actually really big topics in their own right. But just as a bit of a recap, We've started off with some definitions. What is an integration and what is a report?
We described master data management that I am going to get slammed for.
I'm looking forward to that. So all of you data architects, you can contact Joe via LinkedIn. Yeah. Just let him know where he's gone wrong on that one.
I look forward to having to change my profile on the back of this.
They are militant, aren't they?
Yeah. Yes. Well, very passionate about it, and we're probably
so.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably undermined it somewhat.
Yes, just a little bit. We've talked about the things to watch out for in terms of the design, the build of integrations, the timing on that, and some of those kind of key questions that you can ask as a sponsor and a transformation lead on getting a degree of comfort that your integrations are on track. We've talked a lot about reporting, about how to structure your reporting architecture, the different types of reports you need to think about, and the real importance of including reporting design right at the very beginning and thinking that through very carefully. But also a dose of realism that in reality, your business case is predicated on a lot of data-driven decisions that aren't going to get made for the first few months and maybe even the first year or two, because you need a chunk of data to see trends and
to get the insights you need. Yeah,
absolutely. So next week we're going to be talking about data, I believe.
Wow.
Some couple of really kind of technical episodes for you, and then we'll be kind of back into I think probably governance and those sorts of things. Really important topics when it comes to delivering a successful transformation. So listen in next week for our topic on data, and thank you again for your time.
Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. So this episode focused on 1 of 10 critical success factors in the build phase of transformation. If you would like to be at the front of the queue for next week's episode, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to like the show if you found it useful. If you have any questions or opinions you'd like to share, please contact us, so Joe Ailes or Jason West on LinkedIn, or via our website _group.com.